Hey, everyone, welcome back to 996 The Howl. Find myself, frustrated, just maybe a little bit stressed out, but even fans around the Coyotes on the Discord, the Twitter, it seems like everything's really tense around the Coyotes. And I thought to myself, I really don't feel this way usually during the trade deadline. Then I thought deeper, and I'm like, yeah, the Coyotes are usually a quiet team during the deadline. So this is new territory, uncharted territory for Coyotes fans for a really long time. I would say since 2015, since we're experiencing a trade deadline like we are right now. Yes, the trade deadline is Friday, in a couple of days. Still no movement by the Coyotes. Last week there was a cap trade with Dyson Mayo involved. Just, more in terms of the future and how the team is going to spend real money, but not in terms of roster and developing and acquiring future players. It was basically, even though there was a fifth round pick, but the point of that was, like I said, just the future, how the team's going to spend money. So we still haven't had a roster change yet. Chikrin's still sitting out. It's been almost like 2.5 weeks now. Gossip Bear's playing. He's still not traded. His name's quiet. I think a month ago, maybe Edmonton was linked with him, along with Eric Carlson, but I haven't heard his name since. Bukestad's been quiet as well. I'm seeing rumors about Schmaltz and Vejmelka, which I won't even entertain. I'm willing to eat crow on it if it does happen, but I confidently would say that Vejmelka and Schmaltz won't get traded. But yeah, hoping for something to happen. I'm refreshing the socials just like all of you are probably while you're watching this video even. But let's get into the history of the past trade deadline for the Coyotes. Like I said, it's been really quiet, as you can see on this board. I only stuck with players, roster players. They didn't want to get overwhelmed with this pick and this pick. What did this pick turn into? Let's just keep it, pretty simple. And just the point of this video is just to say that this is a new sort of situation for us Coyotes fans and maybe even management themselves. Most of the Coyotes moves happen in the off season. As you can see here, like there's so many names on here that aren't on the board that have been traded from the Coyotes. It's all happened in the off season. I remember feeling this type of way during the months of June and July most of the time, where all the rumors and speculation start turning. Where there's smoke, there's fire. But yeah, never really in March, late February, what have you. So let's get into it. The most recent trade deadline last year, we were tanking, but even still, we had nothing of value to give. Gossip just started his 2-year remaining contract with the Coyotes, so there's no rush to sell Gossip, and I bet his value was lower then than it is now, because now, a season and a half, maybe over a half under his belt. Everyone knows what Gossip is. He's worth a first round pick. He better be. And he's a good offensive guy, good PP2 guy, one dimensional, good offensive defenseman, moves the puck well out of his zone. Not really known for his defensive play. Chikrin, he was injured last trade deadline, so there's no point in trading him. Kessel, I think was a name that us Coyotes fans would want to trade him, but Bill Armstrong said after the day that no one was willing to take his money. And in terms of the value he brought to a team, it just didn't really match up well, and he signs a minimum contract in the offseason. But, they did manage to trade Lyubushkin for a second-round pick. Unbelievable trade. And Nick Ritchie. They got not only just Nick Ritchie, but they had to add a second-round pick for Lyubushkin to the Maple Leafs. Lyubushkin, signed with Buffalo in the offseason. Wedgwood, you'll see his name a couple times here, traded to Dallas for a third-round pick. And Larson, I believe, for a third-round pick. Now, everyone might be dumping on the Coyotes. Maybe us Coyotes fans feel like we want Bill Armstrong to do something. You got to trade Chikrin. The situation has kind of looked bad to us and maybe you. But Bill Armstrong, when he knows what his players are worth, he'll wait for however long it is before executing the deal to get whatever that player is worth. Kemper, he said immediately he needs a first-round pick and a prospect. He gets the first and Connor Timmins. Unfortunately, fumbles Connor Timmins later, whether it's his fault or not. It's a topic for another day. Dvorak, he wanted a first-round pick. He got it. Garland and OEL wanted a first-round pick. He got it. He has a price set for Chikrin, and he's waiting. This guy's standing pat. He's waiting for some team just to come to him and give him what he wants. And credit to Bill Armstrong, he hasn't wavered, hasn't faltered. He hasn't flinched, and you got to give credit to him. Hopefully, it works out well. Just in the end, even if he doesn't get traded, Chychrun, this trade deadline, once he gets traded in the off season, I just really hope at the end of the day we could look back and say Bill Armstrong did the right thing. I think that's what most Coyotes fans hope. It could go ugly. Obviously, anything's possible. But, looking at Bill Armstrong's track record, he usually gets what he wants. So before last year, 2021, this was Bill Armstrong's first season as a GM. This was a shortened season in those weird divisions. He didn't do anything. That was when the Coyotes were battling for the final playoff spot with St. Louis. And they had about a 2-4 point lead on St. Louis. And then immediately after the trade deadline, the team just nosedived, showed no character, showed no pressure or desperation to go into the playoffs. It was only Jacob Chychrun that was really dragging this team, trying to fight for a spot. The team, kind of fails Bill Armstrong. They miss the playoffs out by 5 points. It was a miserable time. That kicked off the exodus of summer 2021. So he didn't do anything. He stood pat. He said he wants the players to prove to him that they want to be in the playoffs. They failed, and the rest is history. 2020, that was when the pause happened. So there was no trade deadline, but they did acquire Taylor Hall in December 2019. So I don't know if you call that a trade deadline acquisition. I would say no. I like it better when teams trade for players earlier in the season, like late December, January, to get the player more acclimated to their new team. But yes, if everything went well, if the pause didn't happen, I mean, they were in the buying mode, which is why they went out and got Taylor Hall. I'm sure they would have been desperate enough to go buy again at that deadline. But like I said, there was no deadline. That was John Scheichel's last season with the Coyotes. That Hall trade was a bit short-sighted, kind of jumping the gun there. They didn't really show, such consistent hockey the Coyotes did. Usually, when you make a big move like that, trading away a first-round pick, you want to show or see that your team is consistently doing well, not just 2.5 months of good hockey. I understand they were first in the Pacific at the time of the trade, but things went south really fast after that. 2019 trade deadline, nothing happened either. I forgot to say that the Coyotes actually bought last trade deadline as well with McBain and Smith. So you never know with Bill Armstrong. I know moving from Chychrun and Bill Armstrong, but you never know. No one knew that Bill Armstrong was looking to acquire young prospects last trade deadline. So I wouldn't be surprised if maybe he acquires one, maybe two sort of prospects in a different deal other than Chychrun. Just to fill up the prospect bookshelf. And then we go to 2018. The Coyotes get rid of Reeder, Duclair, and Wedgwood, his first time as a Coyote. They trade Reeder for Kemper, which at the time was a selling move for the Coyotes, where it turned out to be one of the best trades John Scheichel has ever done. And Duclair, I know right now it seems like that's a massive sell, and what are you doing selling Duclair? But us Coyotes fans know at the time, Duclair was just coming out of the American Hockey League. He was sent down there because Rick Tocchet didn't like his play. They're trying to find Duclair's game again. Something was off, not fitting with the team. Then he gets traded, I believe, to Chicago, then bounced around to Ottawa and Columbus, and finally found a home in Florida. But at the time, Duclair wasn't worth much, and we got Richard Panik in exchange for Duclair, so not really too much selling in 2018. But loving that trade, Reeder for Kemper. Low-key, one of the great trades of recent memory. Then before that was the end and the cap off of just the massive sell, the transition from that 2012 conference final team, finally with the last pieces to fall with Martin Hanzal. John Scheichel made this trade, was an excellent trade as well. Got Martin Hanzal for a first-round pick to Minnesota. Didn't buy anyone. He also traded Michael Stone, I believe, to Calgary. He's still with Calgary. May have been a different team, but yeah, that was the last real sale of that old Coyotes regime before bringing in the new Coyotes regime of Keller and Domi, Duclair, that era Chikrin of Coyotes. Before that, 2016 trade deadline, Mikhail Bodker, I believe traded to Colorado, but he did make stops in Ottawa and San Jose. And yes, it was Colorado because we got Alex Tanguay in exchange for Bodker. Tanguay performed really well. I know this is like a trip down memory lane for some of you, and you really don't want to remember these times, but that was a funny trade. Alex Tanguay, the tail end of his career, just joins the Coyotes, plays well, and some of us thought he would re-sign with the Coyotes, but unfortunately not. I believed he retired after that. He also did a minor deal to acquire Teemu Pulkkinen, who was a player Vegas picked in the expansion draft, so that was a good expansion draft, at least for the Coyotes. And then, like I said, the 2015 trade deadline mimics this trade deadline that we're about to go into, and we are in actually right now. The massive sale of Yandel, Vermette, Zbigniew McCulloch, and Devin Dubnyk, acquiring a guy like Duclair, at the time was, promoted and said to be such an exciting young player. He had a fantastic World Juniors with Max Domi, who was going to be his future teammate. You got a bunch of first-round draft picks. This was Don Maloney's trade deadline. So yeah, this to me, the 2015 trade deadline really feels like this trade deadline right now, just selling off a bunch of guys. I'm sure if it was Bill Armstrong in 2015, he would have done Bodker and Hansel all at the same time. Just rip the Band-Aid off. You got to just transition away from that 2012 team, sell everything high, and just move on. Whereas Don Maloney kind of took his time, traded Bodker in the next trade deadline. Then John Shaika picks up the team and has to sell off Hansel. I'm sure Bill Armstrong, just like what he did in 2021 in the offseason, inherited a team and just flushed everything down. And, some players are hanging around still, like Krause, Keller, Schmaltz. Bill Armstrong wants to build around. And I think Chikrin's the only lingering player that he didn't end up trading in that 2021 offseason. So, hopefully we see it happening in the next 2 days. And then 2014, just rounding out the past decade, Rundblad, and we acquired Martin Erat. I remember that trade deadline. Don Maloney was so fascinated and so content and wanting Erat. He was eyeing him for so long. And then finally Martin Erat leaves Nashville to go to Washington. And then finally Don Maloney gets his guy, but doesn't move the needle, was a useless pickup. Didn't bring the Coyotes to the playoffs. And that was the beginning of the end for Don Maloney. So just a quick video. Just want to look at the past 10 years. 2013 was a lockout season, so it was a short season with no trade deadline, obviously. So that's the past 10 years or so. I just want to look back and, prove to my thoughts that this has been the busiest, most excruciating trade deadline as a Coyotes fan in a really, really long time. And we just want to say, I really, I became a Coyotes fan, let's say 2011, 2012-ish. Tanking was an unheard of concept to me at the time. I really didn't understand it. Losing Yandel and Vermette really hurt at the time. Whereas now, we're veterans. Coyotes fans are veterans at the tank and selling off players when they're at their peak value and just looking towards the future and building upon prospects and keeping your prospect cupboard full. And, it is funny how we haven't moved any more further in the year 2023 compared to 2015. So a bit sad, a bit miserable, but I think we're in a better position now. Prospect cupboard, like I mentioned already a couple times, just so much better than it has ever been. We're not just relying on one player like a Dylan Strome or Barrett Hayden or Duclair and Domi. We got a bunch of players that we're going to wait on. Gunther, he's seasoning right now, went back down to Western Hockey League to shoot for the Memorial Cup. We got Cooley lighting it up in the NCAA. We have Geeky in the WHL as well. We got long-term projects in Lamoureux. We got a really good first-round pick, hopefully top 5 this upcoming draft. And hopefully with the trade deadline trades, we increase that 1 pick in the first round to 3 or maybe 4. We never really know. I hope they get 2 more first round picks for this upcoming draft. That's my goal. But you never know with these GMs. I heard Bill Armstrong asking for the 2025, 2026 first round picks for Pittsburgh. I thought that was amazing. That just showed balls of steel of Bill Armstrong just cornering the other team, knowing that the Crosby era is about to end and just trying to capitalize on a desperate GM and desperate team and trying to creak open that window, whatever's left of it. Just a really strong arm move by Bill Armstrong. It gave me a chuckle to read over the weekend. So that's it for me. Thank you for watching. If you like what you see, spread the word. And the tank rolls on. Thank you for your support. Thank you for watching.